we went through a little rough road the last couple of days. Um, we were supposed to have the gubernatorial candidates, Dan Cox and Westmore, and the lieutenant governor for Chris Westmore, Aruna Miller. But we were very happy to have Jordana here. And Dave is an independent, nice libertarian. Libertarian. Nice to have you too. Um, this forum, Real Talk, Keeping It Real, was really developed by a small group of people, and it is about urban talk and urban issues in Baltimore City. And that's one of the things that has really been lacking in the past years. I'm going to say decades. And we started a foundation called Commitment Charm City Incorporated to put the charm back into Charm City. When we all were growing up, we went down to the Inner Harbor. We had festivals down there. We had July 4th fireworks. It was really a different city. And all I can say is that there are 81 agencies that run this city. And I would say, one, it's too many agencies, and two, they don't do it very well. So the whole point of Commitment Charm City is that the board is committed to Charm City, and that's what we're going to be focusing on in the years to come. I want to thank the owners of the Brass Tap, Barry and Pauline and Michael, for allowing us to use this venue. We're going to have this all covered with chairs until we ran into a couple rough spots and decided just to cancel the event. I'm glad you all are here. Lady J, it's wonderful to have you here and do this podcast live. And with that, I'd like to introduce a dear new friend of mine. And, that's the thing, we judge people on their character, not on the color of their skin. And as you can see with this group here, we come from all backgrounds. I don't care if I consider you a friend, you're my friend. And I'd like to introduce Greg Malveaux to come up and say a few words, who was a Democrat, kind of has some things to say, but truly he's a great guy and has really good wisdom and worth listening to. So, Greg.
Hi, so yes, I'm Greg Malveaux. It's a real honor to be able to speak here in front of everybody. And, I want to tell a little bit about my story and what inspired this event. So I'm a father, I'm a husband. I went to Morgan State University. I'm connected with Baltimore. And like you all, I'm a concerned citizen. And yes, as Hala said, pretty much my history has been voting as a Democrat and voting for the Democrat Party. And I don't know if that separates me from most of you or not, but that is my history. But like all of you, I too had a pretty hard last few years. The last few years have been hard on all of us for a number of reasons, in our families and our friends and our community. And, with that has come some realization that we can't vote. If we're a Democrat, we can't just automatically vote Democrat. If we're Republican, we can't automatically vote Democrat. Republican. If we're liberal, we can't automatically vote liberal. And if we're conservative, we can't automatically vote conservative anymore. And it's got to be more than just the party. It's got to be about the person, and the issues and the integrity and their background. And so that has been a big thought on my mind in the last few years. How many of you, well, just raise your hand. Is anybody a parent? All right, so you have a parent. How about anybody married? Are we married? Yes. And so as a person who has a family like you, we want to make sure that we provide a solid foundation for our family and support them. And so it's been very difficult to try to keep my job, my occupation, because my employer, like your employer, likely said, unless you get the COVID-19 shot, you have no job, right? And no matter that I already had a pre-existing, heart issue, didn't matter. You get the shot, you're gone. So that's been a fight. Yet, at my college, that fight was fought. It was won. I'm part of 2% of employees who remain unvaccinated. That's my issue. That's what I want. Um, as a father as well, and having a son with special needs, and I spoke to Jordana about this. You know, I'm from Carroll County, and so Carroll County Board of Education respected our vote as the people and said that we would not be masking. And so my son started his public school last year, and enjoyed a mask-free environment. But with his special needs, that's necessary because he's got to see people speak. He's got to see people's faces in order to communicate. And he started a great week of his first week at school, and that was snatched away when the state said no. Everybody, doesn't matter what you voted for, doesn't matter what your board of ed said, you guys are going to be masked like everybody else, because we can't show you studies in which it makes no difference whether you're masked or not, which schools, everyone's going to universally be masked. And we had to snatch my son out of school and scramble to help him with his education. Again, you all have your own stories. You have your own issues. You brought your own questions, which we truly appreciate. And so I just want to thank you in terms of that. And I just want to let you know this inspired for me, and with Jordana's encouragement to bring this forth in terms of we all kind of try to understand and forget the misinformation, forget the labeling, forget the name calling that's going on, and try to just understand who we have, who we're dealing with. So I want to thank you all, and I want to really appreciate those who've come to represent, who showed up. Thank you so much for that. And so I want to pass this off to Bernie Flowers, who it's been a pleasure working with him in this event and becoming an amazing friend. So thank you, Bernie.
All right. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? I am so happy to see all of you guys here because we went through some drama earlier, but the mark of a good human being is to be able to work through drama. And that's what we do. That's why we're going to win. Right?
Right.
So, about me, I ran for Congress in the second district, didn't get through it, didn't get through the primary, but that's okay. We'll see this opportunity again. Um, most of you guys know me, so I won't have to go through all this stuff. Why are we here? We are collectively looking to improve Baltimore. Are we not?
Yeah.
Every day I read the Baltimore Sun and I see somebody dying or somebody who died or some major accident. Somebody loses their life. I see that the people are not happy with the schools. Um, our politicians that are in charge right now, they basically have told us a bunch of fibs. They haven't carried out the things that they said they were going to do. The question of the day is, are we going to hold them accountable? Now, Republican, Democrat, Independent, Libertarian, I don't care. Let's get something done. Let's make the people happy. Let's band together and do some good things. So, with all that said, um, Lady J, thank you so much. She's got her head turned to me right now, but I'm talking about her. I listen to her pretty often, and our little group decided that she was the right person to host this thing. And I'm so glad that she was willing to come out here on short notice and help us with this event. I'm going to read her bio before she gets going. All right. You guys will all have an opportunity to ask questions and do whatever you wish to do. But once I turn it over to her, it's her show. Right. So, Dr. Charlene Lady J. Jenkins. Dr. Jenkins is well known in the Baltimore area for her successful radio program, and her inspiring life story. For years, Lady J's show has tackled systemic problems, supported local change agents, and shown Lady J to be a staunch ally of ongoing efforts to effect real and positive change in Baltimore City. Lady J's show has featured elected officials and business leaders from both sides of the political aisle. Through her work and affable personality, Lady J shows herself to be a no nonsense patriot who embodies the power and strength and resiliency of America. Every day, Lady J continues to defy the odds, pushing forward and upward, and to show how success can be earned with God's will and hard work. Without any further ado, my friend, Lady J.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Bernie. It's crazy how I just met all of these people that I've been talking to for the past month or so. So it's nice to meet you all in person. Joyce and David, come on up. Let me move this out of the way. But welcome, everybody. And thank you so much for coming on. If anybody knows me, I don't quit. I don't stop. The show always goes on. Because I'm a show all by myself. So the show will always go on. But we have some really great people here who are going to talk to us tonight. Thank you to the candidates that are here. Let me start off by saying this, because I promised that I would. Most of you probably saw the video I put out at 1 o'clock this morning because I was tired. I do a lot of stuff. Both of my phones are always ringing. So the last thing I wanted to hear was that this was going to be canceled. So I did my little Lady J rant at 1 o'clock in the morning. I do want to say this. Dan Cox called me this morning. I told him I would let everybody know that he did call me this morning. He is sick. I think he was on his way to the doctor's office. He sounded sick when he called me. So I'm like, okay, I understand. He has made a commitment that he will sit and talk with me after the debate. You guys know that Westmore, where's Waldo, is coming up soon. So he's going to be debating with Dan. And so Dan said after this, he will sit down. So let's give Dan a hand for that. And thank you, Dan. I told him that because Dan and I go way back. But if you're wrong, you're wrong. And I still have to say what I have to say. And if you're friends, you can have a discussion and you can move on from it. And that's what we did. Still love the guy, but had to give him a baptism at 1 o'clock in the morning. And those of you who watch me, you know what baptisms are. I don't know where these two are. I call him Where's Waldo. I don't know where they are. So, but we're going to carry on. Nevertheless, we have Miss Gordana here. She's running for Lieutenant Governor along with Dan Cox. And sir, tell me your name again. I just met him. David Lasher. So we're going to have them speak also. I want to take a moment and introduce the people from my station. This is Mr. David Coward right here. If you could give him a hand. Because my station was kind enough to let me cancel all of the shows tonight so we could do this. And so thank you guys. This is Miss Joyce Butler. She does a show on my station. We have Eric in the back, the real tall guy. He's with me. And so thank you guys for supporting me. And I also want to call out Apostle, stand up so they can see you. This is one of our faith leaders in the community. I invited the faith leaders to come out. I want to thank her for coming out today. And if you wanted to take a moment, I'm going to call you up in a few minutes to say something too, okay? Because I think it's important to hear from the people who live in Baltimore City. And before we go any further, I want to ask, and I need y'all to really, really do a clap for this, because if you don't live in Baltimore City, you don't even understand all the trauma that we go through in the city on a day-to-day basis. We're all traumatized here. So I want to ask Dr. Humphreys if he would come forward. He is the chief of the trauma support team here in Baltimore City. I thank him for showing up because I know he's busy, but he was kind enough to show up tonight. I'm going to turn this mic over to him because we need to hear from him and what's going on in the city and what he's doing.
First of all, good evening to everyone. Thank you, Dr. J, and to all distinguished guests and visitors. Um, I think, I don't know which, someone asked me, was I Democrat or Republican? I'm neither one. I'm a child of the Most High King.
Come on now.
We hear so much about what politicians going to do when they get in office, and it's a shame that the integrity of people, once they get elected, they forget who put them in office.
Right.
I grew up in Baltimore. I've been here all my life. I'm 66 years old. Um, some of my mentors is like Clarence D. Burns and others who really didn't have much education, but he knew Baltimore City and he put the work in. Um, I just want to say that I don't listen to what people say. I watch what they do. And I'll just take a few moments to tell you my beliefs and what I have seen in this city while we in the crisis that we in right now, and why so many of our young people are killing each other because they have lost hope in those who govern over them and make promises to them, and they feel nobody's listening to them. For the last 7 years, we've had over 300 murders, 300 homicides. And at one point, I was going to the medical examiner's office seeing young people from ages of 13 to 14 with their faces blown off, uh, some of them heads blown off. The first experience I had when I went to Park Heights, maybe over 25 years ago, where a family member decapitated two Latino heads off. So when people become immune to what's going on, I believe people just need to be educated. They need to be educated to the point, because if you don't treat trauma and trauma goes unnoticed, untreated, then the situation is going to get worse. I look at, and not to put them on blast or anything, but I look at the squeegee kids. I use them as an example, and I don't mind calling Mayor Brandon Scott's name. You see the situation that's going on, but you won't deal with it because you're saying you don't want to move these kids because they are giving a service. Okay, it's a problem, and it's not that you don't have the money to deal with it. And not only that, some of these kids are killers. You know this, but yet and still you ignore the fact. So until we get better educated, get the people in office and hold them accountable for what they say they're going to do. And the reason why a lot of our people don't do it, because a lot of them are broken and lost hope. They feel like, what's the use? You know, we complain about what's going on, but then when you ask people to show up to make a difference, they don't want to show up. They want you to do what they should be doing. I grew up in Lafayette Projects, not far from here, and I understand the plight of what's going on. I was watching a Facebook. I was watching Dr. J, and she was talking about trauma, and she told the truth, where you have a lot of people who profess that they are certified, but they're not qualified to teach about trauma, because that's a very sensitive and touchy issue. And if you don't know what you're doing and you give people the wrong information and they act on it, I'm sure a lot of you know that you can be held accountable. Now, I train police officers, so I know what goes on the streets of Baltimore. And put yourself in the Baltimore City Police officers' space, or all over the world. You do your job, you do it the best of your ability, and you keep locking the criminals up. And then before the shift change, they out laughing at you. The criminals have more authority. I can't speak of no other states, but I'm talking about Baltimore City. I think we need to revisit the consent decree, because the police hands are tied. They're limited in what they can do. They want everything on camera because they're afraid. I'm not gonna say they're afraid. They're afraid of losing their jobs when they do their job. So you can't have it both ways. Either you want to enforce the law or you want a lawless city. Simple as that. If not, you're going to continue to experience these homicides, these murders. And I look at it like this: seeing so many people murdered, in this city. Now, I haven't seen the HBO movie We Own This City. Have any of y'all seen that? Have you seen it? You seen it? Okay, well, I think you need to watch. I know that The Wire depicted Baltimore in such a negative way that we're better than that. This is a great city. I think you said it, sir, so eloquently. Charm City. Um, it's always been a lovely city, but when you have people that's terrified to come to Baltimore because of the crime, the grind, we got to fix this. And I don't care whether you Democrat or Republican. If you say you can do it, then you should be given a chance and opportunity like anybody else. But our young people, before I take my seat, they need your help. Being a mentor don't cost anything but some time. I stand before you. I got involved in this work. I've been doing it for the last 37 years. My son was a Marine. He came home on leave, and his stepdad was a former state trooper, former Howard County police officer. And him and my son got into an altercation because he was physically abusing his mother. And if you know anything about Marines or have any Marines in your family, they're trained and believe that one Marine can beat 5 men. That's what they do. They build them up, break them down, and it's a mental thing. See how strong their mind is. And they got into altercation. My son got the best of him as he was leaving. His stepdad shot him in the jugular vein and killed him. He was 23 years old. I made a conscious decision that his life would live through me. Hurt people hurt other people. And if I didn't go around helping people responding to trauma, I believe I would be one of those person that was lost and couldn't find my way. But when I see people like Dr. J and many of you here who love people, and either you're part of the problem or you're part of the solution. Simple as that. I don't be around people, hang around people who's always complaining. And if you ask them, well, would you like to do something? Would you want to step up and do something? They don't want to do it. I tell people I can fight with you, but I won't fight for you. So for the candidates who's running, God bless you. God bless you. Uh, only you know if you can win. And always remember before I take my seat, the race is not given to the swift nor the strongest, but until he that can do it to the end. So you need that endurance, you need that resilience, and trauma is a hot button, and people are making money off of other people's pain. Thank you, Dr. J.
Thank you. Let's give him a hand, everybody. Are you all able to hear us in the table back there, Joyce? You can hear. Okay, good, good, great. Okay, I think it's important, everybody, that we hear from the people, candidates, that we hear from the people in the audience, and then I'm going to come back around to you. Okay, so I know you have to leave, so I'm going to ask you to come up, Apostle Arnetta, and let's give her a hand. She's one of our faith leaders in Baltimore City.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Good evening. I thank God for just being able to be here and be invited by you, Lady J. Um, I go back way far back. I don't know how people do. I don't get into too deep into whether it's a Democrat, whether it's whatever you want it to be. But what I know is that it takes a village to raise a family, and we lost that. We lost that. Um, the parents need to be able to. Sometimes the kids get lost in the system. Why do they get lost in the system? Because they don't have that parenting that they need there to be able to guide them through the different situations and the different tasks and difficulties they have. I look back when they talk about all the fighting in the school systems, in the high schools, the shooting, the things that's going on in the school systems. Well, what we need to do, everybody can talk about it, but nobody has a similar to a degree of what to do to take care of this situation. Our kids are being abused, even in the school systems, not just here at the homes, but there too. And then we go back to the squeegee kids. Well, we have to find out which is the deepest thing here in Baltimore. We're talking about the killing, but the mental health is the number one. That's the number one. We have to learn how to deal with the mental health that's going here in Baltimore, Maryland. I think once we get to that, then we will have a solution, some sort of solution that we can work on. I said everybody have advice, but nobody has tools. We have to have the tools to know what to do to resolve the solution. And once we get the tools and apply the tools to everything, then I think we can resolve the solution. But when we come to the political part of it, it takes not just one person from the mayor's office, but it takes a group of people to make that decision. That's why I never downgrade anyone, because one person just don't give the decision of what goes on in Baltimore City, but it takes a couple of people to make a final decision. So when we're downgrading one person, we have to think about all the others that partake in what we are doing to make the decision to get the squeegee kids off the street. We takes more than one person to make the decision on how do we get the drug dealers off the street. It takes more than one person to decide where can we go to open up another place where they can get rehab. So there's a multiple things that goes on. And I look back, and I'm close to 60, more than 40. And I look back at the things from growing up off of the Park-Ice area. I'm with you. I came from the Park-Ice area. We fought our way through, but we shook hands after that. Absolutely. And that's what we need to get our children back into, because everybody is going to have a disagreement. You're going to disagree to agree. So we have to go back. I don't really have no questions. I don't have no questions today, but I just want to encourage. I want to encourage our political leaders, those who are running, those who are already in the race. I want to encourage them, and always to leave to say one thing. Faith without works is dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to have faith, but then with the faith, you got to have the works to apply to it. So we have to have the combination of both in order to make this work. Keep running the good race, because that's what it's about. And I can see a change in Baltimore City. I don't know about anybody else. Y'all got to agree with me here. I can see the change in Baltimore City. We just have to be able to get the right tools to make this thing work. Amen?
Amen. All right. All right. Can you tell me name of the church?
I'm sorry. I'm Life Deliverance Outreach Center. We are located on Ricestown Road, and my name is Apostle Arnetta Harris.
Thank you so much, Apostle. Thank you so much. We have another young lady here, Miss Joyce Butler, and I'm going to have her come up and have her speak to everyone.
Good evening, everybody. Okay, so I agree very much with what the apostle was saying, but I have a couple of questions. My first question is, I'm not familiar with you, sir, so tell me a little bit about your background. Yes. What's your platform? Why do you want us to vote for you?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Your name again?
Joyce Butler.
Joyce. So I am David Lasher. I am the Libertarian candidate for governor. And you want me to answer this in 30 minutes, or I'll give you my 2 minutes.
I'll look around at Dr. Jenkins.
How about the 2-minute answer?
Absolutely.
Right?
That's what I do. That's what I do.
So I decided to stand for governor in 2020, November of 2020. And I decided to stand for governor because I feel two things that I'm very passionate about. One is that our American experiment in democracy, it's in dire jeopardy. And the reason, in my opinion, is not what we're hearing from the two big parties. The reason is the battle between the two big parties themselves. So I, with my running mate, Christiana, we decided to stand forward as a principled, accomplished, and civil alternative to what we've been getting with the political battle in the United States for too long. That's one. Two, from a policy perspective, from having a passion about what I would want to accomplish. You know, we candidates, we go to these forums, right? And we're supposed to give this, that, or the other answer. That's the experience, right, Jordana? Yeah. So the answer that you're supposed to give varies on where you are. So you go to a climate change forum. You're supposed to say that I want to be the climate governor, right? You go to another, you're supposed to be that. I am consistent in what my answer is no matter what forum I go to. And what I want to be remembered for, if receiving the honor to be our next governor here in Maryland, I want to be remembered as the governor who, with the people of Baltimore, launched a Baltimore Renaissance that people are talking about 100 years from now, like we talk about the Harlem Renaissance today, 100 years ago. I want to be the governor who works with Baltimore for a true Renaissance. And we can talk about specific policies, because I think my 2 minutes is up.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And you are, let me ask you a question. Okay, so you are running in conjunction with Dan Cox, Republican governor, okay, Republican running mate, okay. So as Republicans, what are you going to bring to Baltimore City? Apostle talked about these squeegee kids and all the issues surrounding this, the crime. I would have you say something to Mayor Brandon Scott. Mr. Scott is educated. Why would he not want education for these young men that are out here trying to wipe somebody's windows? I need you to address that for me.
Well, thank you for your question. So when I came over from Yugoslavia, I came straight to Baltimore. My name is Giordano Schipanelli. I'm running as lieutenant governor on the ticket with Dan Cox. So my first job was in downtown Baltimore, 100 East Pratt Street. Then I went to law school right behind here, 1 block down, University of Baltimore School of Law. So I know what Baltimore is going through. In the last 23 years, I've seen it decline substantially. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to be visiting every single school in Baltimore City. If we were to be elected, I want to reform Maryland education system, because that's where everything begins and ends. You can't have safe streets if you have ignorant population. You can't have happy people if you have dumb and ignorant population. It comes from within. And the mind, the heart, and soul comes from educated, a happy population. And that starts when you're little. So if you start talking to kids that they're not girls and they're boys and they're boys and they're not girls, they're getting 57 genders, they're becoming depressed, they're becoming confused, they become so sad that they turn to drugs. And I don't care if it's marijuana or heavy drugs. They go and turn to drugs and they stray away from God, family, and then ultimately their own country. I was driving, I haven't been here in about quite some time, and I was so surprised to see the tents under the bridge. That's what I saw in LA when I went, and I thought that was disgusting. We can't have people living in tents. We have to have Section 8 housing. We have to help people. But most importantly, education and mental health is hand in glove. It goes together. So what I will do, I'm going to find $93 million that's missing for ghost students. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to go, and I'm a financial advisor and planner and an economist. So I have knowledge and ability to track the money and find where it went. Would you want to know what you can do with $93 million? I also want to know where are the $17 billion that went to Baltimore City in 2017 with late congressmen that obviously Cummings that passed away. $17 billion is a lot of money. Where is it? I don't see people benefiting from it. I don't see schools, children getting educated. So I think we need to track the money first and focus on education. So I will be visiting every single school, and I will be seeing and sitting in the classrooms with little kids and bigger kids and high school kids to figure out what they're doing, what they're learning, and why are they not passing tests. And I do not want to cancel tests. I want the test. I want students to be taking those tests. We got to be able to assess them. We need to know how much they know and how much they don't know. So I think focus on numbers, focus on education, focus on solutions. That starts with, pre-K. I want kids learning. I don't want them on the street, and I don't want them missing as ghost students. So that's what I'll do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. She's talking to you, Mr. Brandon Scott.
Thank you so much. Let's give them a hand. We have Mr. David Howard coming up. David had a question, comment.
Dr. Jenkins, thank you for this opportunity. It's a pleasure to be here. I would characterize it more as an honor. My name is David. I am the owner-operator of Vigilance Farms Training, LLC. I'm a 2A advocate. I'm a child of Baltimore City, raised, went through the public school system. I'm a 1979 graduate of Baltimore Polytechnic. Over the years, I've heard the same lip service from politicians, regardless of the party affiliation. It's been the same blah, 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 year in and year out. This is what I want to do about this issue, and that has been the only common denominator, which is nothing has been done.
Right.
Not a thing. I see the same things going on in the city. As a matter of fact, it's getting worse. The city is in severe degradation.
Right. I agree.
And I don't see where the resources are being applied. As I mentioned, I grew up in Baltimore City. I grew up in Latrobe Projects in a single parent household. And back then, there were some resources, as little as they were, but there were still resources available. For example, every community in every part of the city used to have recreation centers for young men and women to get off the street, and be exposed to some type of structure. There were resources, and I can sit here and talk all night long about the resources that were being poured into the city. And right now, I feel like Baltimore is a lost city, lost in the eyes of every politician, regardless of what the political affiliation may have been. So my question to you all, both of you, is what level of state resources are going to be directed towards the city to meet all of its needs, not just educationally. I agree with you, that's extremely important. Okay, but socially, you want to get the squeegee kids off the street, well, give them something to do. Rec centers, fix up the city, do whatever you have to do, commit the funds to make Baltimore City what it used to be, a proud city, and not just, a statistic where, we have one of the highest crime rates in the city. That sickens me because something can be done about it. But to this point, nothing has, you see. And as far as I'm concerned, that's based on a choice. You can choose to help who you want to help. And I say that because I look at the surrounding counties around Baltimore. Oh my God, you see where all the resources are going. Baltimore's forgotten. So my question to the both of you, what are you going to do if you get in office to help this city? I'll start with you, sir. Thank you.
All right, three parts to the answer. First of all, the money for education. We need to do more than be visiting schools and caring about the kids. We need structural change. And the way we're going to get structural change and accountability for actual educational performance is by having school choice, by making sure that money follows the student, by making sure that zip code is not destiny for education, right? And lo and behold, for that money, it's already on the way, okay? We've all heard of Kirwan Commission or the blueprint. Everybody's heard about this. The money is already on the way, $4 billion per year more on top of what already is available. But guess what is not happening? No structural change. No structural change. Our friend Wes Moore, who's not here, did he go to the public schools when he was in high school? No.
He's not even from Baltimore. Say that again.
Why would Wes Moore, right, deny to poor kids in Baltimore the same privilege that rich kids have, which is the choice of their schools, right? Right. So there is $4 billion per year already on its way, but the current plan that will be executed if Wes Moore becomes the next governor, right, is for that money to go into the same broken system that we already have today. The Kirwan Commission had zero innovation, Zero acceptance of choice and empowerment of students and their families. That has to change. Okay? So sometimes it's not finding more, sometimes the money's already on the way, and we have to make sure that it doesn't get squandered again. Right? So that's on education. Second, where I have to spend some money and have some experience. I used to work about half a mile right over there. I was the number 2 person from 2016 into 2018 at the Maryland Department of Health, right? I was an operational and technology guy. I worked on behavioral health and justice issues, in particular, Justice Reinvestment Act, if you have heard of that. Making sure that those who are court involved received 2 types of services when ordered by a judge. Services for mental health, fitness to stand trial. Services for substance use disorders, SUDs as they're called, but that means addiction, right? Real hands-on experience here. On Wednesday morning, who here has heard of Rising Up Mission? Rising Up Mission, right? About 2 miles this way, right? I'm going to be there Wednesday because that is the way to address addiction for those caught in the hell of addiction.
And it is now.
So direct money to organizations like Rising Up that I already know. Helping up that I already know. But part B of this answer, before I get to answer number 3, part B is I hear a thread in this conversation that I agree with, but nobody's addressing the elephant in the room. The thread is the intersection of narcotics, trafficking and gangsters and crime, and hopelessness. I'll let the train go by. There is only one answer to addressing all of those issues with a policy direction. And that answer is that we need to bring the failed war on drugs to an end. We need to get real about this issue. We need to be brave. We need to recognize that the black market, the gangsters, the traffickers are not going away as long as there's a black market. Right? Remember 100 years ago we had alcohol prohibition? And then we repealed that prohibition. During prohibition, we had Al Capone and the gangsters shooting each other in the streets. We ended prohibition, and almost overnight, the violence went away. 85% of the serious violence in Baltimore is due to the drug trade. We remove the incentives, the black market, and we address 85% of the crime in this city. It's time to be honest about what is driving. Gun control is not going to work. Increased jail time is not going to work. If you want change, you need to be bold. End the war on drugs. Point number 3, third place that I would spend money, and as a libertarian, I'm going to offer that I would spend a lot of money on this. Because this next problem, I think, is insidious to conditions on the street, despair, hopelessness, crime. It's the vacant homes, the vacant houses. My understanding is that there's at least 30,000, at least 30, 15,000 under the stewardship of the city, which is not going to get stored. I do not have to belabor that with this audience. 15,000 owned by LLCs, private individuals. My understanding, as a wish list, and I'm not ready to spend quite this amount of money because I don't know where it would come from, but I would go seek it. My understanding is that we could address the vacant houses in Baltimore. I'm not saying bulldoze them. I'm not saying gentrification. We need investment without displacement. We need to be judicious in where to completely rehabilitate, where to renovate in place. My understanding, one estimate, $1 billion. You know what I think, even as a libertarian? That sounds like short money to me. That sounds like a good investment. So let's go find that $1 billion. Those are three big ideas that would make a huge difference to the future of Baltimore. Thank you.
Okay. And that was a very, very good point you raised. And I'll just, oh my God, are you serious? No, just kidding. Okay, I'll tell you, I'll give you a different question. Okay, something new. This candidate mentioned gentrification. You're familiar with that term, correct? Right. It's what happens when you have major cities in this country where the racial demographic changes. And one thing I've noticed when it happens, that city, that location where there were no resources, all of a sudden, resources are poured into the community. All of a sudden, now we have money to be able to support the community, increase policing, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so he's correct when he says there are a lot of vacant homes in Baltimore City, which, as far as I'm concerned, is just part of the systemic, neglect of the city. So, as a candidate, I'm not going to even talk about your political affiliation here, because as far as I'm concerned, you're being elected by the people. So the government's for the people, by the people. So what are you going to do, along with Dan Cox, to address the issues that exist in Baltimore City? You have 2 minutes.
Well, the biggest issue in Baltimore City is crime. And the issue of crime is going back and tracing it. Where is it coming from, and where is the drug coming from, and what are the drugs that are being traded, and what are the drugs that are being pushed on our kids? So how do we solve crimes? By applying and following the criminal law. I hate to break the news, but 50 years Baltimore City has been led by the Democrat Party. For 50 years, from the mayors through the city officials, they were all part of one party. And what that means is, where's the money and how we're going to waste it? I have not seen a concrete plan that is going to be applying the law to prosecute the criminals and take them off the street. Now, since I'm an attorney, making plea deals makes sense sometimes, but making plea deals with violent criminals all the time makes no sense. So when the drugs pour into the community, and when there's a violence going on, people start selling their houses. People start moving out away from crime. And why are they moving out? Because they don't want to get shot. And the entire community keeps on going down and down and down. And money is not always the solution. It's the willingness to take care of the problem, and that is first identify who are the criminal gangs, where they're coming from, and let's prosecute them and actually get policemen on the street to prosecute the crime. It's not just, okay, let's another $93 billion or $1 million and see what you can do with it. This is the path that we've gone for the last 23 years I've lived here. More money pouring into Baltimore City, and you don't see any benefit of it. You don't. I want to see small businesses in Baltimore City thriving. Where are they? The government is not a solution to everybody with, here's the money, we're going to print the money and give it out so that everybody's got the money, because at the end of the day, we've gone that road. We've got this money and we don't see the solution for this money. I want to see where the money's going. I want to trace the money. I want to see where are these criminals getting these drugs, and who's buyer and who's the seller. And then let's prosecute them. And yes, we have to make sure that mental health is addressed. And not everybody who is on drugs are actually violent criminals. Some of them are, they're not. So we have to actually selectively take care of this with fine tuning between the distribution of drugs and those who are actually in dire need for medical care. So I can't just be telling everybody what they want to hear. I'm going to give you the money and then here you go. More money does not always yield to a solution, because we've got that. As I said earlier, 17 billion was sent during Elijah Cummings' term. Where's it's in with a B? Where's the money? And why are those monies not spent to the areas where they're needed? So the willingness of those who serve to find and track the money and apply the law and prosecute the crime from the top all the way down is what I would really be interested to find out. Thank you.
Thank you for your response. And I will say, and then I will yield to the next person. Well spoken. And I think what you just talked about, okay, addresses the effect. I'm a firm believer in cause and effect. You address the effect, but you did not address the cause. Why is there crime in Baltimore City? Okay. Uh, as I mentioned before, if you start pouring in resources into the city, into the community, you very well may see a change. You may start, if you give young men and women structure, give them some type of direction, something to look forward to, as opposed to their day in, day out seeing what you describe, okay, as a major issue in Baltimore City, which is crime. That's not the major issue. All right. It is part of many problems that exist in the city, and it's an effect of the cause. You think about that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Does anybody else that's sitting out there have a question before I move into this next part? Come on up. And if you could do me a favor and just kind of stand over here. The lighting over here is very poor. I'm trying to get the cameras together.
Thank you. David, we met personally. I'm an informed voter. I read every candidate. I've done so since 1992. So it's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you, Jordana, for being here. I am a mom. I'm a teacher. And I'm a volunteer. My children, along with my husband raising our children together, are not any different than anyone else. This is what schools have been doing for the last 10 years. They've been trying to divide kids by either what they look like, where they came from, what zip code, is it 21231, 21205? That has to stop. I want to tell you both, and in front of the audience, that in 2020, February, I left the public school system. I'm working for a private school now. Because as a preschool teacher, the books were about how two men can be a family. And I remember David, who was 4, little David. The teacher said, here are two men and they can be a family. And David, being 4, he said, huh? And he said, I have a mommy and a daddy. And the teacher turned to David and said, David, that is not the only family that exists. Wow. That's what's happening in Baltimore City public school system. 1.6 billion with a B is the budget for Baltimore City public school systems. Over $375,000 goes to Dr. Santelises. They had AC when schools opened in August 29th, the week of August 29th. My son's high school did not have AC. They had half days. Yes. I bring this to you because I want to ask specifically about education. If you were elected governor, and then for Dan Cox, same question. What would you do about the failing system that has one leader in cahoots with the mayor? And I am not afraid to say it because I was part of a nonprofit that wanted to open a year-round high school to give opportunities, to give an alternative, to have year-round high school for no gap during the summer, collaboration with the businesses to have internships. I am bilingual. I would be the Spanish teacher for free. That was what we offered for free. Yeah. And the school board denied us 3 times. Wow. The first time, you didn't follow the rubric. What rubric? Oh, forgot to insert that in the application. Second year, no. You don't have a professional development schedule for the entire year. Came back the third year. No. We sued Baltimore City School Board. Yes. And we went right to the state and we won. We won. We had to go back to the board. And of course, they make the final decision. And they said no the third time, April 2021. Wow. Our fight is not over. Our fight is not over. Not at all. So 3 things need to stop. Yes. Stop sexualizing education. Absolutely. Stop the abusive teachers, because it is abuse when you are sexualizing education and when you're yanking, pulling, hitting, yanking, pulling, hitting on kids. That happens. I've had to report it. That's right. And the last thing is we need to stop paying a CEO just shy less of the President of the United States. What would you do? Yes.
I would do what I've already mentioned, which is bring choice and empowerment to not just students and their parents, but teachers as well. I think this is something that is underappreciated about the school choice model. And let's pause for a second. Where do we have school choice? Where do we have school choice? Higher education, colleges and universities. Where does education in America work best? Colleges and universities. It's not a coincidence. Right? So what we need to do is go to a model of money follows the children through scholarships, vouchers, charters. I support all of the above. And what we need to do under this model is allow new schools to pop up, like entrepreneurs. Right? Why is it only in education that we don't let those who are motivated, those who are dedicated to teaching, to start their own schools with their own curriculums? Curricula? Maybe I need to go back to school. but uh, uh, some people in the community might want to send their kids to a school that is relatively early, more pressuring sexual curriculum. They might, right? Let them have their own school. Okay? Others want more traditional values, right? Let them have their own schools. The key is that a few administrators and elites should not be making the decisions and deciding where the money goes. Schools should compete to get students, and that is the accountability mechanism for those who are the school leaders, instead of an automatic $400,000 paycheck every year for effort instead of results. Let me leave you with a statistic. How bad are the Baltimore schools? How bad?
69% graduate proficiency.
Well, it's worse than just graduation is an end effect. So measures of proficiency, report that I found was 4 or 5 years ago. There are about 8,000 high school students in Baltimore, about 39 high schools. Take the bottom half of that, so I'm referring to, that's 3,814 students in this study. 3,814 students, high school in Baltimore. I want everybody to think, how many of those 3,814 do you think tested proficient in reading and math? Out of 3,814.
Probably, yeah, I think what they're saying on the national level, only 26%.
Well, 26%. Here in Baltimore, it was 14 students out of 3,814 proficient. That is not just unacceptable, it's unconscionable. So school choice, I think, has benefits above and beyond just where you go to school. Thank you.
So, I support school of choice as far as the location, as the building where you're going to go to that school or the other school. But when it comes to the substance, what the kids are learning, it needs to be revamped. It needs to be changed. I want to have young children starting pre-K to start learning foreign language right away. I would like to have students learn logic. In fact, 90% of people don't understand the difference between formal and informal logic. If you have people who can't think for themselves, you have sheep that anybody can lead to any slaughterhouse you wish. So you have to have people who are able to think for themselves, and those people are little people. By the time they grow up, they get more and more challenging things. They would start liking school. I am a product of European school education, and the schools in Europe are fun. My kids were bored to death in their classes. They were reading depressive books. They were learning some new vision of math, like Common Core with some triangles. They would not memorizing times tables. They were getting stupid and dumb. And I felt so sorry watching my three boys go through Maryland public school system. So it's it has to be a substantive change, starting with more diverse subjects, shorter in time, more time on the playground to play. So 3 hours language arts is unacceptable. It should be 45 minutes. And then kids need to go out and play. Because when they are forced to sit for 3 hours and pay attention, they can't pay attention. And then when they don't pay attention, they are being told that they're sick. They have attention deficit disorder. And when that happens, the parents are taking them to medication. So obviously this stopped working. But but anyway, you guys can hear me anyway. I don't think I need a microphone unless Lady J, you want to hear that?
Yes.
Okay.
Dr. J is going to handle the situation.
All right, let's see. All right. Hello. Hey. Oh, this one works out. Hey, this is great. So, more diverse subjects, shorter in time, more physical activity, and more hands-on. And at the end of the day, when we get to high school, those high school kids should actually start to figure out what they want to study if they want to go to college or if they want to go to trade programs and trade schools. There's so many good trade programs and trade schools around that they're untapped potential. And that is something that we want to foster. So yes, school of choice, yes, where money follows the child, but more importantly, what kids are required to learn is something that I would really like to pay attention to. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that question. That was powerful, power packed. Thank you so much, and it expresses a lot of how we feel here in Baltimore City. Um, I always tell people that I actually worked 3 jobs so my son wouldn't have to go to Baltimore City Public Schools. And it was hard because I was working around the clock and probably sleeping about 3 or 4 hours at night, getting up, going to another job, going to his games. It was tough, but I felt like that's what I had to do so he wouldn't become a statistic in Baltimore City. Now he's over there, he's 26 years old, and Baltimore City is still in the same place it was 26 years ago. And it's absolutely ridiculous. And nobody's saying anything, nobody's fighting. I don't even understand about the parents and why the parents aren't up in arms because there was no way I was going to put my son in that system. And so, but everybody can't do what I'm doing. So, what I did. So, we have to make sure that we really do. Your question was amazing. That we get out here and do what we need to do to make sure these children are educated properly. We have politicians in place who are very well educated, but we're not concerned about the children coming behind them.
Right.
And it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
So don't get me started. So I'm gonna be quiet. But anyway, thank you, candidates, for answering the questions as well. And so what I'm gonna do is switch this up a little bit, and I am going to ask, since we have what are those, the ghost students? Since we have ghost candidates here, we're going to just have someone sit in their seats, in their amazing seats. Um, and so I'm going to ask Miss Alika Bazemore to come over. Come on over, Miss Alika. Let's give her a hand. She's going to be talking to you all in a few minutes. Whatever ghost seat you would like to take is fine. Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm sure he won't mind since he didn't show up. And then we had, where did Chris go? Chris Anderson. Come on up. Let's give Chris a hand. Here's what I want to say about these two people right here. And I mean, let me tell you, they are visible on the street every single day. I don't know how many of you are on social media, but you can always go on social media and see Miss Bazemore and you can see Chris Anderson. And this is why I rock with these two right here. Because they not only walk the walk, but they're out here doing the work. Boots on the ground every single day. and not afraid to go to places. One day I was talking to her, I said, be careful. She's like, oh, I'm good. Like, she's not afraid to go out. And this city is rough. And everybody can't go everywhere in the city. You have to know these streets. And so I just want you all to please give them a round of applause for what they do. I also want to say this, and I love giving people their flowers while they are alive. um, when some of you may know, I was recovering from a stroke when I fell into this whole media thing, and I decided I'm just going to try to build this up into a business. And I was actually laying across my bed one night, really, really frustrated at what was going on in the city. My son was supposed to come home for break, Christmas break, and I didn't want him to come home because it was so bad, and we had a lot of killings. That was in December 2019. So I'm laying across the bed and I'm yelling in my social media page, like, what's up, Baltimore? What are we going to do? Da, 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 da. I'm going on and on. A couple days later, I get a call from Chris and Tim Fazenbaker wanting to be on the What Up Baltimore show. And I'm like, well, actually, there is no show. And Chris and Tim actually helped me to create that show. That was in December of 2019. And this was before Facebook was blacking and shadow blacking. But that first show we did, we had about 10,000 viewers. And it was powerful. And I want to thank Chris, because I call him my brother, because Chris has taken me by the hand through this whole political thing, because I really wasn't into it. I didn't care about it. But he pulled me in, really guided me. Tim Fazenbaker. One day I saw Zalika on the news, and I'm like, well, I don't really know her, but I got to start connecting with these politicians. And I sent her a message on Facebook. She said, okay, yeah, I'll come and meet you. Well, at the time, I didn't have anything. I just had my apartment and my son's room. And so I changed his room while he was at college. I changed it into a studio. And Zalika came to my house, and we did the What Up Baltimore interview in my son's room. So I just want to always thank you, Zalika, for that, because these are people who are really about their business. And I just want to give you guys your kudos, your flowers, because here it is 2022, and you guys are still doing the same thing. So I appreciate you so much. I'm glad you were able to make it to this forum. You always have my support, always. So thank you so much for coming. I just want Zalika to take a few minutes. Is anybody here who doesn't know Zalika Bazemore? Okay, that's what I thought. All right, so we could probably just skip all of that and go right into the other part. Anybody who doesn't know Chris Anderson? Okay, good. Well, we can just skip all of that. We can skip the formality, and we can go right into it. I love both of these individuals too, because they are straight shooters. There's no chaser at all, so you get what you get. So we did have some questions for all four of you. And so we're going to switch it up. And if any of you in the audience, if you think of any questions and you want to stand up or raise your hand, let's do it. Let's get it. We have our candidates here. And are you all ready to answer some questions?
Ready? Yes.
All right. Okay. Let's go. So this question right here, I thought was really interesting. I'm going to try to read it in the dark without my glasses. But this is for everybody, and you can just give a short answer. You don't have to give a long speech. But what would you say to the gay couple who fear you are too extreme for them? Zalika, you want to start off? Let me repeat it again.
No, I'm going to answer this one. Okay, what would I say to a gay couple that thought I was too extreme? And it depends on what they think I was being extreme about. Because what people may consider to be extreme might just be my passion for issue. And my solution to resolve the problem. Having a daughter, having a niece who are gay, having a daughter that was the first woman to be married in Baltimore City to her partner, who is a pathologist at Johns Hopkins, and my daughter is a marine biologist. voted #1 in terms of international industrial designers, taught, was paid double to come to Baltimore in 22 to teach 8th grade biology, but is so beloved as a teacher. What do I say to my child when she tells me that she was gay, that she fell in love with a woman? I don't think I'm the extremist. I think each person has a passion. And when we talk about whether you're straight or gay, there's more people that may think that I am very radical about just wanting to do the right thing in Baltimore City, about just wanting to clean up Penn and North, about just wanting to make sure that we have CIA, FBI, Knox, AFT down at that harbor, because we're the second largest and most productive harbor in the country, to find out just where all the product is coming from. So some people may call that extremism. I call it a passion to do the right thing, to actually put an end to the drug cartel problem here in Baltimore City so we can begin to heal the people. How about that?
Okay, Chris Anderson, you guys can just pass the mic around. There you go.
All right. First of all, I want to thank y'all for being here. I'm Chris Anderson, running for State Senate District 40. That's as a Republican. That's unheard of in West Baltimore.
Yes.
I'm one of the few people God plucked out of the church and said, run. I want you to run. And then I met Zalika Basemore and I met Lady J. And I'm going to tell you that story. Lady J hasn't came up off of that before I answer the question. She got put out after they got 10,000 views and they found out I was a Republican. They banned her from the building. So she gave me a phone call and she said, they banned me from the building, but I'm going to keep on going. And I thank you. And I appreciate your strength and you're a soldier. And we need you on the Republican side. I'm sorry, we needed you on the Republican side. We need you. Let me answer the question. Okay. People, voters, forget, and we as politicians shouldn't forget, that we're fighting 3 battles. We're fighting a biblical battle, we're fighting a political battle, and we're fighting an ideology battle. And sometimes we get those mixed up and we pull into politics ideology, or we pull into biblical politics. So when someone asks a question like, how would an extremist like me represent gays, or what about gays? That's an easily answered question. There's 3 answers to that. There's a ideology answer, there's a political answer, and there's God's answer. Okay? That's number 1. Now I know God's answer. Okay? Not everybody subscribes to that. I know the ideology answer, and most don't subscribe to that. And I know the political answer, where everybody wants to fuss about it. Okay? As a representative, although I am pro-life, although I believe that marriage is between a man and a woman, as a politician and getting elected to office, my job is to represent the people, and all of the people, gay, black, white, straight, it doesn't matter. If they're citizen, what I see them as, if they're a citizen of Baltimore, I'm supposed to represent them. I'm not supposed to bring my biblical views in, and I'm not supposed to bring my ideology views in. We can fuss about that later on a different platform. What I believe shouldn't, though, affect what they eat, the citizens eat. I shouldn't push my belief and hold them back or oppress them in any way, no matter what sex orientation. It doesn't matter. I'm supposed to support the people. I'm a representative for the people, not a black person, not a white person, not a gay person, all the people. So that's my answer to that. Gordana?
Well, thank you. As someone who came from a different world here, I always follow Martin Luther King's Jr. Words that the people shall always be divided based on the content of their character and nothing else. Not based on their skin, not based on their gender, not based on their religion, or whatever beliefs they may have. So the question, what about, the gays? It's their individual choice. I am all about having individual freedoms, and however they choose to live, it's their business. It's not the part of the government to tell anybody how to live, what to eat, whether to eat veggies or whether to eat meat. It's up to the people to live their life and raise and live whatever the values they have. It's not up to the government to decide, and I firmly stand with individual liberties, which would apply to everybody. Thank you.
Complete agreement. Love whom you love, marry whom you wish. The Democratic Party in Maryland did not support gay marriage until 2013. Libertarian Party has supported gay marriage since its founding in 1971. The key is who you are, be who you are. It's not government's business. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So next question. I want to get you all's opinion on Westmore. No. We have to talk about it. We have to talk about it.
On camera?
We have to talk about it.
On camera?
Okay, you get on camera. This is you didn't even let me finish my question.
I already know where you're going.
So this is my question. Let's talk about the fact that we have all of these issues going on in Baltimore City, but we have not been able to really get our hands on Westmore to be at some of the events that are going on. And I want to know, especially from you two who are working so hard in Baltimore City, how do you feel about that? Because he could possibly be the next governor. So this could be the person, because you both have won. I forgot to say that. Let's give them a hand because these two have already won. So this well, all of you have, but I'm just talking about Baltimore City for right now.
Oh, okay, yeah.
This is somebody that you could possibly be working with. So I want to know how you feel about that.
Okay, I'm gonna make this 2 minutes, but I'm gonna start off saying that my niece, who has a master's in special education in PG County, she called me. She said, "Auntie, the teachers union just had endorsed Westmore, and my niece is also my treasurer for our campaign committee. So Dan Cox was in my first fundraiser. He was my keynote speaker, and so she said, but get this, I didn't tell him that you was my aunt, but I asked him, do you know Zalika Bazemore from out of Baltimore City? And he said, who doesn't know Zalika Bazemore? That woman is a warrior. She don't play. She will call out the mayor or whoever. Okay, but I do know one of his aides. Now, I'm not going to prejudge right now why he didn't show up in Morgan, why he's not here tonight, why he hasn't showed up on 4 other platforms. I'm not going to even judge him when the Baltimore Sun, which I called and told them to retract the story, the headline, because Westmore was not here giving out water during the E. coli contamination 3 weeks ago. It was I who organized with 2 faith-based organizations in Penn and North in an area where the Baltimore mayor had not brought fresh drinking water to that area. Westmore was nowhere to be found in Baltimore City in the 40th district. Dan Cox was the one with his people. Thank you guys for coming. They bought 800 gallons of water. They helped me and my husband out and 2 faith-based ministers. So what do I think about whether I would work with Westmore? I'm just going to ask the question, so I know already I'm going to get a phone call tomorrow. Okay. Westmore, I want to know your mindset. I've heard the rumors. I've heard that you stole someone's identity. I heard that, and I want honesty definitely on that level, on any level when it comes to our public officials. But I want to hear from him. I want to hear from you, Westmore. Before I make a decision and before Baltimoreans cast their vote, and remember, it's already mail in voting right now. Mail in voting. Because Westmore, I don't think it's going to work this election cycle where you just don't feel you need to address the voters in Baltimore City. If you carry Baltimore and PG County, you're going to carry the black vote come election day. Okay, no, contrary to what people may think, Baltimore is very influential and significant. They're the ones that organized the Million Man March. Understand that. There's a lot of history and still historical people here in Baltimore City that have a lot of influence on how people vote. So we need to hear from you. I in particular was looking forward to hearing from him tonight. It would have been the first for me. I happen to now know Dan Cox. I happen to know that he care about the people. I happen to know that he will work with me as a delegate if I win the people's vote November the 8th. I happen to know that if I call him, he's going to come or he's going to send one of his aides to work with me in the 40th district. See, so I already know that about him. I'm not going to prejudge Westmore, but Westmore, we the voters need to hear from you. That's where that is at this point. I have ministers calling me asking, what will he do about crime? We've heard from Dan Cox, but we don't know where his mindset is. So I would advise you, don't depend on Brandon Scott. Don't depend on Antonio Hayes. Don't depend on Frank Conaway. Don't depend on those individuals to win Baltimore because they're not you. And if you're depending on them, people are going to look at you as coming from the same cloth that those individuals are, which those individuals have done nothing in order to get on top of crime, inflation, education, transportation, have done nothing. Okay? So you need to speak and be listened to. That is my advice to him. I will not judge him right now, but hey, I can only vote for the person that I'm confident in. So if I don't hear from him, then Dan Cox got my vote.
Can you repeat the question? Yeah, sure.
I hear that clap back there. It's the truth. Okay. It's the truth.
Thank you, Zalika. I knew Zalika was not going to mince any words. But the question is, Chris, and I'm posing it to you two because you are in Baltimore City and you work really hard in Baltimore City. Shout out to Tamu, Tamu
Davenport.
She's a warrior.
Yeah. Would have been here.
So,
66 years old.
yeah. But here's the thing. There's a possibility that West could win for governor. You two would have to work with him. And how do you feel about him not being visible and the possibility you might have to work with him?
Now, what's the name of this form again? What's the name of this form? Keeping it. What's the name of this form? Keeping it real. I don't know why you did that. Put me on the spot. I'm gonna get put out of Merle. I said to you on your last show when you had me on, as long as I got this platform, I'm gonna run my mouth. I'm gonna run my mouth. Zalika, Zalika was nice for once. Her answer was nice. Mine is not gonna be nice. Westmore is no good for Baltimore. Westmore is no good for Maryland. Okay? The man is a crook. We know that. How many more times have we gone to elect politicians in the office and then complain afterwards? The man robbed a family. The man lied about being from Baltimore. The man is not black. He's West Indian. Everything about him is not transparent. And then he will not show up for debates. No, I will not work with Westmore. I'm not going to give the man my vote. I support Dan Cox 90%, and I support David Lasseter at 10%. I support Westmore no percent. And this is what I will say to the people. Thank you. I'm not finished. This is what I'll say to the people of Baltimore that's blind. Okay? Our plight, our black plight, has been hijacked. I'm gonna look at it's been hijacked. And so many people use our plight against us, and we let them do it. And we become the oppressors of ourselves. And then we want to say, white this and white that. But it's murders in Baltimore City. There's crime in Baltimore City. And there's politicians that will exploit that crime. And this man has already done that. If he get in office, we're going to have high inflation. If he get in office, he's going to try to bankrupt Maryland. They're going to bring the gay, the drag queen story time to the library downtown. We're looking at a Chad zone situation, everything. And we think if we do this, if we bankrupt the states, we're going to get back at whites. No. The very first people, after we cast these votes for these oppressors, the very first people that pay are black people. The very first people. The first thing Biden did when he got in office is let illegals in. And then the second thing he did was sign an Asian hate crime. Black people got nothing. We was the main people that voted for him, okay? I'm tired of it, okay? I am tired. Christopher Anderson is tired of it. And I want everybody else to be tired of it too. We don't need Westmore, no daggone Maryland, okay? The man's a criminal. I'm not voting for a criminal. I don't care if he win or lose. I'm not voting for a criminal. I'm not working with a criminal. No more for Baltimore. No more.
Okay. All right, let's get Chris Anderson. Chris said no more. No more. And I agree with you. Because I'll be honest with you, and I feel his passion, his pain, his everything, because when you are a mother, such as myself, and you have a black male who lives in Baltimore City, their days are pretty much numbered. And every day that my son leaves out of the house, I'm worried until he comes back in the door.
When is enough?
Yes.
When is enough? When are we going to say enough is enough?
And we have to do something. We have to do something. So now, you all may not know who Maya Angelou is. Look her up if you don't know who she is. But there's something that she said that I hold very close to me. When people show you who they are, believe them.
Believe them.
When they show you who they are, believe them.
He's already robbed the family in Baltimore.
And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Crook is a crook.
There was another question about the book, but I think I'm going to skip past that.
Wait a minute.
I got to give Chris a chance to breathe.
Oh, yeah. No, you got two people.
No, I didn't. I wanted to talk to you two from Baltimore City.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That question was for you two. Did you want to say something? You wanted to say something?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. Go ahead, Chris. Just woosah.
I want to say another thing to the camera, and I'm saying this to the people. I want to address the people's illegal. I want to address the people.
Go ahead.
The people of Baltimore, don't be fooled anymore. Don't let people take your best interest and throw it away. I'm gonna tell you something about Dan Cox. Dan Cox, a reporter asked me the other day, he said, why are you friends with Dan Cox? He's an oppressor. I said, the first time I met Dan Cox, I was at Lawyers Mall. The man walked straight up to me and said, hi. I did not speak to him. He said, are you Christopher Anderson? I've been following you on such as, this is a delegate, just came right up to me and said hi. Ever since then, we've been friends. No candidate. These Democrats, to get an appointment, Lady J, how hard was it to get an appointment with them, Lady? Testify, Lady J. You can't even get them on the phone. And yet Dan Cox walked right up to me and said, hey, my name's Dan Cox. What's your name? What prejudice? What prejudice? He walked right up to me. Hi, what's your name? Christopher Anderson. Oh, I heard of you before. We've been hanging out ever since. And people just don't believe me. Oh, he's bought you. No, he did not buy me. Oh, he giving you something. No, he did not give me nothing. He spoke to me, okay? He saw me as a human being. Westmore don't see that. Westmore and them have a plan. They have a plan to bankrupt Maryland. Don't be a part of it, voters. Don't be a part of it.
All right, so I'm going to pose this question. Bernie, keep me on track with the time as well, because I didn't bring my watch with me. All right. Gordana, come on over. We'll put you on the hot seat for a minute. This is something that's been going around that I need you to correct. I did my own personal investigation. I actually did a show about it because I was tired of hearing it. But there is a rumor going around that Dan Cox had a bus that went out to DC in January. He was a part of all of the confusion, chaos, and everything that was going on there. So I need you to give us some information on that because, like I said on my show, what I found out is that he had a church bus, and there were just a group of people going down there like everybody else. That's what I found out from investigating. But you're running for lieutenant governor, so I need you to answer that. The other question or comment that I've gotten, because people are commenting on the screen as well, is that Dan Cox is a racist. Yes, that he's a racist. So I want you to address those two things.
Good God. So as far as the, are you talking about the January 6th bus? Yes. So the man went to listen to the President of the United States and with a group of other people, and then he went home. He was nowhere near the Capitol, wherever the rioting was.
So he did not incite any riots.
No.
The people that went with him were not told to go out and.
I was on the they bus. Were not. I was on the bus. So Chris was on the same bus. He was
gone. So I was supposed to be there.
I don't know. And as far as the what is the other one? The racism.
He is a racist.
Oh well, I was told I was a racist too, and that means we're all racist. So I don't think that it's another slander that is being thrown away. You know, sometimes, and I don't know why is that happening in most recent political, life, that every time somebody disagrees with somebody else, they throw the word racism. And it's actually, as someone who came to America from another world and sees this country as a beacon of freedom and hope and future, it hurts me when somebody says, you're racist or you're racist. And when there's something very wrong when someone's using skin color to initiate the argument.
That's what they're trying to do, though.
And so it's very evil when someone is starting to use the skin color to initiate any kind of debate, argument, or to begin or to end an argument. To someone who, again, in Europe, where my ancestors were slaves to Romans and Turks, and it's a big deal when somebody says racism or slavery, it starts to tie that to some kind of oppression and looked at America. I don't see it. And Lady Jane, I am banned from Facebook for the last 2 years, permanently deplatformed. So I have no idea what goes on this social media, but I can promise you that if God's willing, we get elected this time, I would like to pay attention to what social medias are doing to people and how they're being silenced, because they are providing a Times Square. They're providing a service for us to speak. And when they shut us down, they actually do infringe into our freedom to speak. And I think that, the First Amendment gets implicated when the social media platforms are used nowadays as public squares. And so they do provide, just like, electricity companies, they provide electricity. These social media platforms provide a platform for speech. And when you or I or anybody else is silenced, I think that part needs to be revisited. To Maryland residents, I would be the first to lead that path to try to get us all freedom to speak. And our speech is the first thing that separates us from other countries where the government lets you speak. Here, we were given that right by God, and government has to stand away from it. So I would love to be the one to be remembered of someone who fought for the First Amendment and free speech of everybody and all Baltimoreans here.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. And she's telling the absolute truth. Because even though I'm streaming live right now, this is going to probably get banned later on because every time I talk to the politicians lately, they've been banning my videos. So it'll probably get banned. But
welcome to being a Republican.
yes, but I'm just going to keep going. The other question is, oh, and thank you so much for clearing that up. So let me just say this one more time, because that's what's being put out into our community. Let's get away from name calling and doing the race thing, and let's get to the issues of what's going on in the city. I'm so sick and tired of it. And we are way more educated than that. At least I know I am. I can't speak for anybody else. But we are way more educated than just sitting here constantly talking about he's a racist, this is a racist, that's going on. Stop it, okay? We got a lot of stuff going on in Baltimore City. We have a crisis going on right now in case nobody noticed. And those are the issues. We have a lot of issues here that we need to work on. Now, this next question is for everybody because, as you all know, a big news story came out a couple months back about abortion. And I need to find out how you feel about it, where you stand. What are your plans as you go into position? Because I'm gonna be honest with you. When the story broke, my phone was blowing up. People were like, "Lady J, can you talk to somebody? Can you find out what's going to go on in Baltimore?" I called every division that I could think of to call in Baltimore City to talk to somebody to get an interview. And what I basically got from everybody is that we don't want to talk about that. I don't, I'm telling you the truth. I don't understand it. And I just got frustrated and I said, forget it. But that's what they said. They did not want to talk about it. So you have not had a chance. Come on over. Don't you think we forgot you? We want you to start with you, and we're going to go around with Donna and Chris and then Zalika. And you can stand right in front of that camera so they can see you.
Yeah, so abortion is a profound moral decision that needs to be made by the woman who has the pregnancy. So what you can rely on from me is that whatever the question is, whether it's beginning of life, end of life, whether it's the school you go to, the person you marry, the car you buy, I'm going to be for choice consistently, including masks, vax, consistently for choice. But I will say this. I agree with Ruth Bader Ginsburg that Roe v. Wade was bad jurisprudence that needed to be overturned. And I think that the reaction from the Democratic Party in particular out of Washington, D.C. has been over the top political theater since the Dobbs decision. So I support longstanding Maryland law. I am grateful that Marylanders had the foresight, I think in 1992 and through a referendum, to make sure that if Roe v. Wade wasn't overturned as it needed to be overturned, that reproductive rights would remain. But let me just say one thing and then hand the mic over, which is whether it is abortion or voting or guns or anything else, we need to not talk just about rights, but also responsibilities. And that includes reproductive. Men have reproductive responsibilities along with women. And we also need to make it easier to adopt. And that's where I stand on this.
Thank you. So one of the things, what I stand for is I stand for life. I stand for life. The Roe v. Wade was judicial judiciary taking role of the legislature, and I'm glad that it was overturned. However, Maryland legislature had just recently attempted to pass and have tried to pass a law that goes far, far extreme. The law that allows someone who's 34 weeks pregnant, almost to deliver a human being, to abort that human being. And some drafts of the law went further 28 days after birth. So that is what the extreme left is going after. And I'm afraid that if we end up with Wes Moore and the majority delegate legislature and the executive, we're going to end up becoming a for abortion or on demand type state where all these other people from other states are going to be coming to our state to perform those abortions that exceed a reasonable type of viability choice. So it's a tough issue. Modern medicine allows, everybody knows how babies are made. There is after 24-hour pill, 72-hour pill. You don't need to actually go so far extreme to carry pregnancy 34 weeks and then decide you're done with it, or 9 months and then to kill a human being. You know, uh, uh, abortion clinics in Maryland are funded by taxpayers, and the largest percentage of those abortions are unfortunately Black babies. It's a shame. It's a disaster all across. So I love life. I would love all others to enjoy life. This state should be the place where people would come to enjoy life, not to kill another human being. Thank you.
I'm going to agree with Georgiana Schifanelli, and by the way, David Lassiter, that was a great answer. You truly are a politician. You truly are. I'm not for abortion. I agree with Georgiana a lot. And, I'm sorry, I agree with Mr. Lassiter. Ruth Ginsburg, she did the right thing by overturning Roe v. Wade. And it is political theater from the left. And I don't know what to say here. I'm not giving no blind answers to appease people for votes. Abortion is against just black. It's against black. It was designated to kill off the African American race. What African American race would be pro-choice? And we got a lot of people that are pro-choice. If they're listening nowadays and they're Democrat, you're voting against your own values. Margaret Sanger started the abortion mills to kill the black community, and she's dead and gone, and we're doing a daggone job for her. And we vote against our own values, talking about, this is one of the things that the left liberals tell blacks. They're only talking to blacks because they know the truth. They're only talking to blacks, and we sound so naive. I'm learning to be nice. So naive. I can't use the other words. Ignorant, stupid. We are doing the work for them. I'm not afraid to say that we should stop doing that and vote and become, not only vote against it, but become pro-life. Listen, the left, what he said, the first thing the left did, Lady J, AOC, she's in my inbox on Twitter talking about you're forcing us to have babies. Now we're forcing them. I talked on another radio interview and they said, aren't you pro-choice? I said, yes, I am pro-choice. Didn't you make the choice already? Anybody that's already pregnant, you already made the choice. Okay? How are we forcing you to have babies? It's a lie, okay? Well, you're forcing us to be pregnant and we can't take care of the babies. Then don't have them. It's just that simple. Listen, what happened to our biblical values? What happened to trusting God? What happened to faith in God and saying, listen, I'm going to have this baby with this man. Oh, you didn't think that much of the man in the first place? Or he didn't think that much of you? Maybe you should have put more thought into it, okay? I want to hear the comments online about this, okay? Especially from black women. You've been aligned with the devil and trained to vote against your own values. Abortion should be illegal. Ruth Ginsburg was right. And by the way, it was not another lie they tell. It was a right. They're taking away our rights. They're taking away our rights. Women's rights. It was never a right. It was a court case all this time. Okay? They solved the case. It was unconstitutional and it was unjust. And it should be. It was designed to kill black people. And I pray to God, well, it did stop. And I pray to God it stays dead. Okay? I pray to God abortion stays dead.
Okay. First of all, I wrote an article, an editorial for the Baltimore Sun the day the story broke, because I already saw where so many people were going to misuse our Supreme Court's decision to make a correction. Really, that's what they did after 50 years. They corrected an error, a historical error, because that particular case should have never went to and been decided by the Supreme Court. The Constitution is very specific because our forefathers understood life. They understood value. They understood the difference between the countries they had fled from and to be in a new land and wanting to see people, first of all, have freedom, not be under a dictatorship of a queen, a king, or a dictator. And so when those wise forefathers drew up the Constitution, which has been able to survive for over, 300 years, they understood that we have nine appointed Supreme Court justices that are experts at what they do. And they understood that over 50 years ago, an era in their decision making was made. The only thing that this brief did, it overturned a Supreme Court era that was decided upon that had nothing to do with the Constitution 50 years ago. So that's what my editorial to the Baltimore Sun was, to try to calm down the rhetoric. And that's right, rhetoric and propaganda, because politicians make it that way. Media, mainstream media, makes it that way to keep the division going during a campaign season or cycle. So, what do I think about Merlin? Merlin immediately called a special session to modify, and that's what you were speaking on, Gordana. Dan Cox was a part of that and voting those bills down. Thank you, Dan Cox, Delegate Dan Cox. But one thing that I know, because there's no value by a lot of people who run our country right now, there is no moral values from a lot of people that are on the far left. And it's not about me judging them, because God is going to be the judge over each one of us one day individually. Whether you're atheist, or whether you're born again Christian, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Hebrew, whether you're Arabic, Muslim, whatever you consider your religion, because that's all that is. It's a subtitle. Whatever you consider, God is going to judge each one of us. We're going to stand before that Creator, and He's going to judge us. And so when we talk about a woman's right, not just the woman has the right, but the man as well. And when we talk about abortion, I've never heard anyone talk about the man's right to the life of his unborn child. So when we want to talk about the extremists, we need to make sure we stay within the guidelines of our Constitution. We need to make sure we're not radically modifying the state by state Constitution. And us delegates, if I'm elected, we need to make sure that we are educating young women, first of all, about protection, secondly of all, about the value of marriage, and thirdly of all, economics. You plan for your children. At least that's in a perfect world. My first child was not planned by my fiance, but my fiance didn't want a child at that age. And I said, well, guess what? It's my baby too. So no, you don't get to tell me to kill my baby. Now that's how I thought at 18. I thought it was murder. That's just in my soul of souls. Not be based on based on a church. Not based on something even my parents taught me. It was just a natural, spiritual soul thing where I felt I would be killing a part of me. So no, they did the right thing because now it comes to the states. And as delegate, I will not go across and step the boundaries of what is right. I will not have any part, and I will do everything in my power to influence and shame any people that try to vote for 26 more than 12 weeks pregnancy, to have the audacity to want to abort a child and call it abortion. No, it's murder. That's murder. And there's no other way to look at that. It's murder. And if we're talking about in our schools, allowing children to get abortions by someone that is a nurse practitioner, that's not even a doctor, a GYN doctor, without the parents' knowledge or consent, no, we should not have any delegates agreeing to approve laws. Oh, this is in the right venue, folks. It's coming back to the people. It's now back to the people. Thank you for that clap. It's now back to all of us. Get that. It's back to all of us. And being your delegate for District 40, I will fight with everything in me in Annapolis to make sure that life continues, because it is a gift from God, not from man. And man has no right to take an unborn life, none whatsoever. And a man should also have a say whether they want their child. Okay? So we have to have some morals here in Maryland and throughout this country. Yes. We have to. And you hear the kid in the background yelling? That's because we've lost our values. To the point of that. To the point of a young child's voice or a young adult's voice yelling out of wherever because they have lost their way. And a lot of it is because of our country and our state and our city leadership, whether it be on a school level, whether it be on a government level, whether it be even on a ministerial level. We have lost our way. And until we bring back the right values, so we don't hear young people shouting absurdities, because they're listening and they're mimicking a lot of us. A lot of what goes on in social media, a lot of what goes on in mainstream news, a lot of what goes on even in your home. So be that voice of reason and have the right values that you're speaking out into the atmosphere around our youth, around our young people. Okay? So yes, I am pro-life. And I've been that way because that's just who God made me, to value life. It's a gift from him.
Thank you so much for Zalika sounded like one of those mothers from down south, like, ah! She was she was talking from way over here. But when it comes to abortion, I just want to share this real short. As I said, my son is 26, and first child, got pregnant. I was married, and but I almost lost him 3 times. The third time, I was right at that point where back then you could abort. And I was taking the Sinai, well, I guess I should have said the hospital. Well, anyway, I was taking the Sinai Hospital, and the first thing they told me was that your child is not going to make it, so you need to abort right now. And I was actually in the room. My ex-husband, we're crying, we're having a fit. And the one thing, I'm a woman of faith, in case you all didn't know.
Yeah.
And I just began to put my hand on my stomach and I prayed over my child. I didn't know if it was a girl or a boy, but what they told me is that if you continue on with your pregnancy, they gave me the paperwork and everything. Let's go, and they had me on labor and delivery. Imagine that first time, on labor and delivery, and you're there, and they're telling you have to abort. So, but my ex and I, we chose to keep the baby, and it was a rough pregnancy. It was a very rough pregnancy. But I just believe, as they told me, they said if you continue on with the pregnancy, your child will be developmentally delayed, and it will be a child that you will have to take care of the rest of your life. And the reason I'm telling this story is because when you have faith in God, there is nothing that's too hard for Him. And my son is sitting back there with 2 college degrees. And, I'm proud of him because he's actually the athletic director now at the school that I worked 3 jobs to send him to this school from kindergarten all the way up until he finished. And it got rough at times, but he's now the athletic director at the school that I paid for him to go to. And so I just wanted to share that with everybody because it's tough when you're going through it, but I want to let you know that it gets easier. And when you see your blessing every day when I wake up and I see that blessing, and there's nothing wrong with him, and I often think of that one moment when I thought of maybe I should just sign the paper because they're telling me it's going to be pretty grim. But I'm thankful that I didn't. So, ladies and gentlemen who are watching, who are here, make sure that you think this through before you make that decision, because there are people right now who are, and I still don't understand this. I had to talk to Evie about this because I didn't even know what was going on. There are women now that are wherever in these hospitals that can abort babies, and they're like 4 or 5 months in to the pregnancy.
It's ridiculous.
And so
It's
really, really serious, and that just hurts me every time I hear it. But we got like 5 minutes. So what I want to do real quick, I already have 2 people right here. If it's 3 other people who had 1 minute, I'm going to give you the church finger, okay? You have 1 minute. When I put my finger up, you are done. But this gentleman right here has been waiting patiently. He wanted to come up and say something. You had 1 minute, sir. Come on up and talk to the candidates. And if there's anybody else, you're next. And anybody else, if there's 3 more people who want to jump up,
1 minute.
there you go. You got 1 minute.
We got to say close the arguments.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Jonathan Colvin. I'm better known as Yaya. That's my Muslim name. But today has been a pretty good day, and I just like to say, man, I'm glad y'all here doing what you're doing and fighting for Baltimore, because I'm also homeless too. And I really can't say I'm homeless because God made a big world for me. I just got to make a spot to lay at. That's all. You feel me? Faith is strong. But this past weekend down at Healthcare for the Homeless, the guys are sleeping on 83. We had an issue. We had some things happen last night. The farmers market had to come in, and the police and everyone came down to move us out of the parking lot. I wasn't there. I was across the street when it happened, but the noise woke me up. So when I went down to see what was going on, where I camped at was a mess. I mean, it was trash everywhere and everything. People were streaming facilities and everything, because they came wrong. And I'm just looking at, why did they come so late? It was like 11 o'clock at night. And then I thought about it. You came late because you knew everyone would be asleep. And that's how Baltimore is now. We're falling asleep. We're under the influence of something. And if you're under the influence, that ain't you.
Right.
So we need to get off whatever is making us under the influence of so many things that's pulling us apart. Unity is something that's very strong. But I like to just say this one thing, and I'm going to get off this mic because I know you said we got 1 minute. I had to learn to be patient. I also just came home not long ago, July the 8th. I went to 70 times 7, a drug treatment program that helps with drug treatment and housing. I had 3 years clean under my belt. Thank you. I had 3 years clean. Well, I had 3 years clean under my belt until I relapsed. But I didn't relapse like I used to. That's the difference in my life. This is why I'm so glad that I'm here and I'm still doing what I'm able to do. And that thing is, man, that I had to learn to be patient. And I used to say this all the time, and I still say it. It's best to be patient than to become a patient. Because once you become a patient, you might take anything to be your medication. So think about it before you open that medicine cabinet again within your mind and heart. Thank you.
Thank you for taking a moment to be vulnerable and share your story. Thank you so much. And I hope the candidates will take a moment and talk to you before you leave. Maybe we can help you with something. You know, homelessness is a big thing in Baltimore City. It's a huge problem in Baltimore City. And I will tell you, I have walked these streets, and these homeless people, a lot of them are not homeless because they want to be. Some of them have lost their jobs, and they are homeless for the first time with children. There were people under that bridge that had children, babies. And so this is a real, you were down there, Talika, this is a real thing in Baltimore City. And so when you get a chance, sir, I want you to talk to all the politicians, okay? All right, ma'am, come on up. Yes. Anybody else? 3 more people. You have 1 minute.
Right,
Come on up,
Phelps.
Mary.
Right, Phelps.
I wanted to speak briefly about the issue of life. It's easy to say, my body, my right, my way. It's easy to say, I can't talk, I can't, I'm not representing a man. I'm representing myself here. And I was 24 weeks in gestation. And I remember my little kitty cat looking right at the bottom of the steps like something was wrong. And I didn't understand. 2 hours later, I am hemorrhaging and about to have a 24 weeker. 24. And my doctor came in the next day. Did they give you the steroids, to help that baby in the event, just to help the baby with the lungs? And I said, what? No, they didn't. They didn't. What? He rushed out. And the doctor at Sinai Hospital did not give me the steroids because he thought it was best not to do so, because he said the baby probably won't survive. So let her pass, in quotes, let her pass it like a bowel movement. He had no right. You've met Juan. Juan is 15 years old now.
Yeah. I met Juan.
Okay. He was born at 24 weeks. Eyes were sealed shut. You could count the ribs. 24 weeks. You can't tell me that he was not a baby at 23, at 23 days, or at 1 hour of conception. He was a human.
Amen.
Human. He is a top student at his high school. He had the parent-teacher conference this past Thursday, and his music teacher said, if I had 100 Juans in my class, if I had 100 Juans in my class, my days would be brighter. My days would be brighter. Not dimmer, brighter. Juan is making a difference because someone greater than the doctor had a plan for Juan. Had a plan for Juan. So yes, you can survive evil, even when someone doesn't want you to live and survive. You can survive because Juan is a testimony of what can happen when he is given the opportunity to live. If you unscramble the word abortion, and add an N, it spells not born. But that's not where the story ends with God.
Woo! Everybody listen, I'm so sorry. We have to end. I'm so sorry. I apologize because they're about to close. Bernie, did you want to come up and close out?
I don't know if that thing's working. You guys, thank you guys for coming. Commitment Charm City. You'll be seeing a lot more of it. I want to thank Lady J.
Thank you.
I want to thank our candidates. Is it working? Oh, Verdana, I wish you the best of luck. I wish all our candidates the best of luck. We got to be, thinking less about Republican, Democrat, Independent. We got to think about our conservative values. That's what's up. Because we got to win for Baltimore. So with that said, thank you all for coming. And let's just give Lady J a big hand. She gave her time. Outstanding. Thank you, man. That's it.
Woo. I'm just gonna give you my number. Yeah, you can call me when you find them. Okay, and then I'll try to help you get through some of those things. And I'm gonna connect you to Christine Flowers. Okay? I'm Salika Basie. And you probably know me because I've done a lot of press with her. All right, so I'll give it to you. Hey.
Oh, you know her. He knows you. That's not a crap. Ah. Why you gonna call me up here? I was about to say, look, Lucy, I told me to get up there. I know. Yeah, people asking questions. I know they mad at me. I don't give a damn. Look, you heard what I said. He walked straight up to me at the lawyer's mark. He walked just what's your name? He said, I recognize you. Yeah. And I'm like, he just walked right up and started speaking to me. Where's the prejudice at?
I know, right?
Right. Oh, he bought you. He didn't buy me.
Wait a minute.
Let me end.
Were you live?
I was live the entire time.
Wow, that's
Good.
amazing.
I'm gonna hear